This lesson is on section 3-1, writing expressions and equations. Now, expressions and equations represent a given situation. Expressions have a variable, an operation, and a number. And equations have a variable, an operation, a number, as well as an equal sign. Now, this table shows expressions and equations that go along with certain phrases, and this chart will be very helpful when writing expressions. You can think of algebra as having its own language, and we're going to be translating that language today. So let's go through some examples. So the first expression is saying x plus 9. Well, I use the phrase x plus 9. That's what you're normally used to seeing, but there's also other phrases that we can use to represent this expression. So for example, if we look at the phrases, 9 more than a number, and I'm going to highlight the word more, because more is the word for the operation of adding. Same thing with saying the sum of 9 and a number. Again, the sum is our keyword here to represent adding. A number plus 9 is also another way to represent this expression, or a number increased by 9 is the same way. And finally, the total of x and 9. And notice more, sum, plus, increased, and the total of are all different ways to represent adding in an expression. So now let's look at the expression, and I will say this as h minus 4. But other ways to express this expression is we could say 4 subtracted from a number minus 4, 4 less than a number decreased by 4, or the difference of h and a number. So subtracted, minus, less than, decrease, and difference are all ways to represent subtracting. So now let's move to multiplying. So we have the expression 6g, or 6 times g. Other ways to say this expression, you could say 6 multiplied by g, 6 times a number, or the product of g and 6. So multiply, times, and product of is another way to represent multiplication in an expression. And finally, with division, so we have this expression t divided by 5, or we could say a number divided by 5, the quotient of t and 5, and divide a number by 5. So notice divided by, quotient of, or divide is a way to express division. Now let's move down to equations. So what you'll notice in this chart is that the difference between equations and expressions that I mentioned before, equations have an equal sign. And so you'll notice in these sentences that we have the word is and we have the word equals, and that's going to represent our equal sign. So let's look. We have 3 times a number minus 60 equals 59. All right, so let's go through other ways that we could say this equation. We can say 60 less than 3 times the amount is 59. Notice I underlined less than, and that represents my subtraction sign. Times, that represents my multiplication. And is going to represent my equal sign. So let me erase this before it gets all messy here. Then we have 3 times the amount less 60 is equal to 59. So 3 times the amount less is my subtraction sign, 60 is my equal sign, 59. So another way is 59 is equal to 60 subtracted from 3 times a number. Notice how we just changed that sentence around. We started with the is, that's the equal sign, and then equal to 60 subtracted from 3 times a number. So we just set it backwards. And lastly, A number times 3 minus 60 equals 59. Notice that's kind of what I used to say this example from the beginning, and that's the most traditional method. 3 times a number minus 60 equals 59. So there's 4 different ways of saying that exact same equation. That's why algebra can get a little tricky sometimes. So let's go through some examples. So we need to write each phrase as an algebraic expression. All right, so the first example is 7 less than m. And I'm going to highlight here the word less than. So we can go back to our chart, and I know less than is going to mean subtraction. So I'm going to kind of focus on this part of the chart here. So if you notice 4 less than a number, and I'm looking right here, and you can write that as h minus 4. Notice that the 4 comes behind the h. So if 7 less than m, so what I'm going to write this as, a lot of students think that it's 7 minus m, and that's not correct. 7 less than m is you're going to take m and you're going to take 7 less than that number. So you're going to take m minus 7. So this is how you would write the expression for 7 less than m. Then we have the expression the total of 5 and c. So the total of, that's my key word there. And if we look back at our chart, the total of is referring to adding. So we're going to look right here. And the total of is right there. So the total of x and 9, notice we're just writing that as x plus 9. Or in this example, we can say the total of 5 and c is just 5 plus c. That's how we write that. Pretty simple. And the difference of, now on our chart, the word difference means subtracting. So all I'm going to have to do is say 6 subtracted by r. So or 6 minus r. Now the next example is to write each sentence as an algebraic equation. So a number increased by 7 is 11. So let's highlight some important words here. So we have a number increased by 7 is 11. So a number, well, I can just write a number as, I'll just say x. Increased by, I know is going to be plus, and I'm going to put 7 as my number. Is, and I know that's the equal sign, and then I'm just going to write the number 11. So that's how you write your equation. Then the next example is twice as many points as Bob would be 18 points. Okay, so twice as many. To me, that's going to sound as multiplication. Twice as many. In your chart, you can see that twice is the same word for multiplication. So twice as many points as Bob. So you know what? I'm just going to put the letter B into my equation. So twice as many points as Bob. So I'm going to say, write 2 times B, or just 2B, would be 18 points. Would be is just a fancy word to saying equal sign. So 2 times the amount of Bob's point equals 18 points. So that's how you would write your equation here. And lastly, 3 more than 8 times as many trees is 75 trees. All right, so let's highlight some important words. 3 more than 8 times. So 3 more than. So more than means adding. So I can write this as 3 more than, now 8 times as many trees. So I'm going to say 8 times the amount of trees that I have is, so that's going to be equals 75 trees. So I'm going to put a circle around the plus sign because this is not a T, this is an adding. So 3 more than 8 times the amount of trees equals 75. And this can get a little tricky, but with practice, writing expressions and equations will get pretty simple. Thanks for watching.